So, good morning and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Katie Lebeds. Welcome to our standard work free series today. I am the president and CEO of a lean consulting firm called Learning to Lean, and I'm based out of Hortonville, Wisconsin. I am a certified Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt and project management professional. I'm also an emotional intelligence coach. I am an author. I've written three different books that are available on Amazon, and I have over 20 years of experience in project management, continuous improvement, leadership, and coaching. And I'm so honored to be able to be with you here today to talk about something I'm pretty passionate about, which is standard work. So let's go ahead and get started. And let's talk about first, what is a process? So a process is a series of steps to produce a product or a service. A process transforms inputs into outputs. And we talk about all of our processes many times in my classes, and we talk about the fact that everything is a process if we look at it. Getting ready to attend the session today is a process. Getting dressed in the morning and getting ready to go to work is a process, or taking care of your kids, etc. We all understand that. I always like to share that the meme that you see on social media all of the time that says, I never knew as an adult that I would have to figure out what we're going to eat for the rest of our lives. That's a process too, right? We have to figure that out every single day. So when we have processes, I want to share with you the three versions of a process. So the first version of the process is what we're here to talk about today, is your standard work. So what the process should look like based on a document, a video, some sort of artifact that shows us this is the way we expect to do this process. Now, for many of us, we are subject to audit or internal audit or certification audits. So if you are in the medical world or in manufacturing world, right, you're subject to audit from ISO 9001 or 14,000. All of those types of certifications require some sort of standard work. Now, keep in mind, traditionally, or back in the day, it was a Word document, right? So we read this, let's be honest, really boring Word document, and that was our standard work. But today I want to talk about some other alternatives. So going back, there's three versions of a process. The first version is what is in your SOP or work instruction, or whatever you may call that at work. The second version is what that process looks like in your head. So when we're thinking about that process of getting ready for work in the morning or getting ready for bed at night, that's the second version of the process. And the third version of the process is what that process looks like when we do a value stream map, a current state value stream map. So that physical manifestation of the process. Now, conceptually, all three versions should look the same. Your standard work or SOP, what you think the process looks like in your head, and what it looks like when we actually document it in a value stream map. However, reality is very different. Reality is most companies that I work with don't have standard work. So everybody's version of what that looks like in their head is totally different. And it's amazing when we do a value stream map because people are shocked, honestly, at what the process looks like. So many times you hear, wow, I didn't realize the process was so cumbersome. They may say, I didn't realize that that data that I created or that XYZ is something that you need in your process. I was just working with an organization a few weeks ago, and we were looking at their process to be able to deliver a order to their shop floor. And when I went to do that, it was amazing to look at their planning process. And it was like two steps, large planning process that happened 3 to 4 times a day, and then a couple more steps, and it was handed off to their manufacturing. And everyone was totally amazed at what that looked like because it didn't match their SOP because they didn't have any. I'm sure everybody had a version of what that looked like in their head. And it was shocking to see what it looked like when we documented on paper. So here today, we're talking about standard operating procedures or standard work or job aids, whatever you may call them, which is an indicator of how we do work, right? So it is a baseline for improvement. It documents, however that is, on a Word document, in a video, whatever, how we actually perform the work. So when we go to do a Kaizen event or we go to do a project to improve the process, we use that standard work as our baseline. It ensures consistency and expedites training, right? So conceptually, we should be using that standard work for training of our new members or new to the role members. And of course, helps us support audit. And the focus of Six Sigma is to reduce variation. And that's what standard work conceptually should do. It involves a team to develop Poka-yoke, which means mistake proofing. So how can we keep people from making a mistake in the process, and helps us to promote problem solving. So when I help organizations improve their process, the first thing I asked is, let me see the standard work for the process that we're there to improve. Now, here's a real life example. I was working with an organization that wanted to improve how they onboard new suppliers. Now, we all can conceptually understand that, whether or not that's our role. We understand that there is a process to onboard new suppliers. And I said, great, show me your standard work. And they came in a week later and I said, let me see the standard work. They had 96 documents. 96 documents that represented their standard work for onboarding a new supplier. How many should there be? One. There should be one standard work document to onboard a new supplier. I may give you the benefit of the doubt and say two if you wanted to say one for the US and one for everybody else. That's okay, but not 96. And can you imagine if it was your first day on the job and it was your job to take over the process for onboarding new suppliers, and you went into the system, and they did have a system to maintain all the documentation, and looked up and there was 96 documents on how to do that, I'd probably quit. It was amazing. And it was a symptom of something greater going on there. But what was happening was that people had the right mindset that they wanted to improve the standard work process, but they just continued to create more and more and more standard work and not sunset the previous standard work documentation. So with 96 documents, literal Word documents, nobody knew what was accurate. So that was really an interesting experience. So when we look at standard work traditionally, so this is textbook standard work. In standard work, they're saying that there are potentially three charts to look at. So a production capacity chart. So it's used to determine the capacity of machines or humans in a process. And there is a whole calculation for that. So if that's appropriate for the process that you do in order to let people know what the capacity is for a machine or a system, et cetera, this would be an example of a production capacity chart that you might be able to use in your standard work. Standardized work combination table is another one. So it shows the work elements and their sequence. So again, this is assuming that we are documenting it in some sort of Word document. This one came from LEI, so the Lean Enterprise Institute. It looks at analyzing the work elements and how long it takes to do things by hand versus automatic versus walking, and we look at time. So basically it's process flow. And then there's also a standard work analysis chart. So it can provide a visual aid to employees in training to show people where the next step is in the process. It shows the takt time, which is how fast we need to go in that particular process to meet the demands of our customer. It shows the cycle time, how long that particular process takes, and how many operators. All of this is great examples, right? If that works for you, right? So what I want to talk about next, though, is understanding how people learn. So again, traditionally, if you were in the ISO era of having to do things like this, we had this really boring Word document, and I've done them. I've been part of them. I understand them. But in reality, are people actually referencing and using that document as we want them to on a day-to-day basis to figure out how to do their job? Probably not. So let's talk about how people learn. So visual learners learn by seeing, right? And even a visual learner would not like a boring Word document, okay? They need pictures and colors and images. That is what's really going to help them understand the material and make it stick. A kinesthetic learner is a person that learns by doing, hands-on learner. Now, this can be anywhere in your organization, from HR to IT to accounting to if you are producing manufacturing or if you're delivering a service. They're a hands-on learner. They learn by doing. They are the first person to jump up, and when I say we're doing an activity, they're like, yes, here we go. I'm a visual learner, so I'm always like, I don't know about doing the kinesthetic work. A verbal learner learns by speaking. So they're the type of learner that they're going to repeat to you what they've heard, or they may put your words in their own language, and it needs to basically come out, to come through their ear in their brain, and then back out their mouth so that they understand. A mathematical learner needs a formula for everything. They find great comfort in knowing that 1 and 1 equals 2, right? So they want a very clear cut, very black and white scenario. Interpersonal, they learn best 1 on 1. So that would be ideal for them to be able to learn the concepts is some 1 on 1 coaching. An auditory person learns by listening. And if you are an auditory learner, you are just a very lucky learner that you can remember everything that people have said. If I give you directions to my house, you will remember that. If you give me directions to your house like that, I won't remember the first sentence you said. But if you told me I have to turn right at the blue house, I'll remember it because I'm a visual learner. And an intrapersonal learner learns best on their own. So they learn best watching YouTube videos by themselves. We were teasing somebody in class this week. If you are the type of person that likes to read an owner's manual, you're probably an intrapersonal learner. You learn best on your own. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's great. But we do have to understand we have all sorts of different types of learning styles. And we have to make sure that we have created the standard work that will appeal to the majority. In my non-scientific observation of learners, most people that I have had in class are either visual or kinesthetic, or a mix of both of those. So we have a lot of kinesthetic learners nowadays. And you think about how we learned in school, and it wasn't like that, right? We did, at least when I was in school, it was a lot of visual learning. It wasn't a lot of kinesthetic learning, but it's probably a little bit better now. So, can standard work be applied anywhere? Absolutely, right? What's your standard work for going to the grocery store? So, this is mine, and I tell people all the time I am a nerd. There's nothing wrong with that. I do not put my grocery list in Excel, though. I just put that up there as an example. I do write it on a piece of paper. So, veggies, dairy, meat, clean, and miscellaneous. That's my standard work for going to the grocery store. Number one, I can't go to the grocery store without a list, or I'll buy everything I don't need, and nothing that I do need. And I have it like that because that is the way that the grocery store is laid out. So as I'm walking through, I'm following my list. I can't imagine how my husband goes to the store, which he doesn't go very often. He just writes one big list. And I'm like, you're going to be going all over the store in order to be able to get all those things. But this is what helps me. Now, some people use technology, and over time, I'm converting to ordering my groceries online. And you can set up lists in there. That can be your standard work, your normal list of every time I go to the grocery store, I know I need milk and eggs and bread, and make that on your list or your favorites. So there is standard work for that too. So the question that I ask when I'm engaging with an audience and with a Kaizen event or with training, especially if I'm coaching people for green belt or black belt, if you're working on a project, the first question you want to ask is what standard work exists for this process? The second question to ask is where is it stored for easy access for all? And that is a very large question, right? So some companies, if they're very fortunate, they have a document repository system, which is fantastic if you can afford it and that works well for you. Some companies use a shared drive. As long as you have that shared drive organized and that it's backed up on a routine basis, that can work great for you. The other place that I see people storing documentation is SharePoint. So SharePoint can work great. Also, again, you need to have a process for it and you need to have an organizational system for it. I suggest that if you don't have anything like that right now, that you take a look and see what would work best for your organization. And then the next question I ask, which is related to that situation I told you about with onboarding a new supplier, is how many SOPs or work instructions do you have for the individual processes? So ideally, we want to have one, depending on the process, right? We definitely don't want to have 96 for one individual process, and we would like to have more than 0. So those are the questions that I typically ask. Now, if we were in class together, the next thing we would do is an activity. So all my kinesthetic learners get all excited about this. And I will show you the activity that we are going to do. And I'm going to share the video with you. So I hand out t-shirts to everyone in class. So we have, I have a bag of about 20 t-shirts. And I'm just going to make sure that we are sharing the computer sound here. And I'm going to show you the video that I show them. So the way I introduce it is, welcome to this company, our new company. Our only job is to fold t-shirts. That's all we have to do. So welcome to your first day on the job. And they have a t-shirt in front of them. And I introduce this as your standard work for doing this job. So let's go.
真ん中の上から4分の1のところを左手でつまみます。次に左手でつまんだところから延長した肩と裾のところを右手でつまみます。あとは払って袖のところから折り込むようにして畳めば、そうです。こんなに綺麗にできます。
So then I asked the group, so how did you do? Of course, nobody's able to fold that t-shirt, right? They're like, oh, can you play it again? So we play it again several times. And then we have a great discussion in regards to the importance of understandable standard work, right? So number one, if you are new or have somebody new coming into an organization and you don't have understandable standard work, this is what it feels like to them. It feels like you're speaking fast in a language that I don't understand. Everything's moving fast. I can't understand what's going on. There's no written words. None of this makes any sense to me, and people get very frustrated. And when we don't have standard work or we don't have standard work that resonates with folks, that's what it feels like to them. Now, while we're in class doing this, obviously we go through this several times. We're not done until everybody knows how to fold a t-shirt that way. And then we talk about their experience at the end of class and what it's like to go through that and what they're feeling. Another activity that I do with folks is called Let's Build a House. And we use Legos and we give them this standard work, which for most of us, this looks like the standard work that we may have seen for our job in the past. And it's a Word document. It is a couple pages, so I'll show you the actual document here. So it's a couple pages long, and they have to be able to look through that Word document and see this black and white version or picture of the final outcome. So back and forth. And as you can see already, there's some symbols, right? Or some acronyms. The GBTF is a plastic part of green color, size 2x4. oh boy, I'm not a Lego person, so this might be hard for me, right? And RBTT, RBTF, and so on. So they try to follow that standard work I just showed you, and it doesn't work. They can't figure out how to follow it, even though it's standard work documented in a manner in which we traditionally would follow. So next we show them this. So uh, we show them the next few slides. And it shows on this side, great pictures, needed blocks, how many they need. And then the next slide progresses and shows them how to start assembling their Legos to be able to make a house. So we walk through these and then we get them to the final product. And everyone is able to follow that standard work, even though there's not a word in sight, right? So all visual, they can follow it. They had their little recipe or their little list of the items that they needed at the beginning. And then they just followed the pictures on the screen to successfully build this house. Now it helps that it's easy to understand, that it's in color, right? And it's going step by step so that people can easily follow it. Now, I do have a customer that is embracing standard work, and I actually have several customers embracing standard work, especially on various areas within their organization. And what they're doing is they are putting barcodes or QR codes on their machinery or their tooling or their dies so that the user will just have to take a tablet or their phone and scan that to watch a video on how to use that particular piece of tooling or machinery or die, etc. Whatever it may be, that's what they are using in order to be able to access their standard work, which I thought was really cool. They were really excited about this. So let's talk about some technology to use to create standard work. So one of the technology or pieces of software that I have a customer using right now is called Tazuki. Tazuki is a tool that will allow you to create easily understandable standard work. This is for a paper company that they are using this right now. And they're going through step by step. It allows you to put in pictures. It allows you to put in video. It keeps track of who has had access to the standard work. You can put in a quiz if you want. Very user-friendly and very appropriate. I have another company that is using Tango, and they're using Tango to create their standard work for their new ERP system. They are not a manufacturer, they are a reseller, and they have an ERP system that's brand new to them. And they realized that they needed to create standard work. So they use Tango, and Tango basically is one of the features is that it will screen capture. So I would go into the system and I would do, let's just say, a sale, and Tango is recording all of that. And then it would help you to be able to write the standard work based on that recording, which is using AI, which is super cool. Not always right. You have to always check it. Two other ones that I have not personally used, but I do know of. One is called Scribe, and you may see those, especially now that you're watching me talk about standard work so many times. I'm sure your phone is listening. So Scribe will probably pop up on your phone. And the next one that is also somebody else that I know is looking at this. It's Tranual. I believe I'm saying that correctly, Tranual. So it is another way to be able to embrace and use technology. So none of these, or at least Tango and Dazuki, are not cost prohibitive. Like it's not so much money that your company would be like, oh my gosh, we can't possibly afford this. So they're very realistic in their pricing models. So I can at least speak to those two because I have two customers using those two. You have to do some research in regards to the other two. And I'm sure there's many, many more out there. I do strongly suggest that you look into something based on the type of users you have, right? And it doesn't have to be a boring Word document, right? But please make sure that you have it,
Evet,
and that
daha
people are able to understand it and people are able to use it, because that's how we want to have a process done every time until we make it better. So what questions do you have for me? Just a quick little video today on how to do standard work. I hope that you understand the importance of standard work. And of course, if you have any questions or if you need help with standard work or any type of training for lean, continuous improvement, Six Sigma, project management, please contact me today. Thanks for coming. Have a great day.